The August 2020 update for MLFX. It's our second monthly update that we've done, although obviously we've been working on this project now for over 6 months, I believe 7 or 8 months in total since we first really started, and possibly about 3 months since we launched the first beta. So there's a lot of work that's been done, and that's what we're going to go over in this video. That's what we're going to go over in this article that I've compiled here for you guys. If you do prefer reading, go over to the website MLFX.com and to our blog, and you'll be able to find this full article. I will gloss over some points, but I'm also going to go more in depth in some of the things that maybe aren't even listed in this article, and then obviously unpack some of the stuff that we've got here that maybe needs a little bit further explanation with videos or drawing on the trusty whiteboard that's not a board but on the computer. So let's jump right in. This is, as I said, the August article. We're going to skip over the intro here, just go straight to the guts of the article, which is starting here at the website development. So I'm the one working on the website, and I didn't spend a lot of time doing things to the website this month. There was a few points I wanted to address. I noticed that the sharing buttons on the website blog, on this blog here, so these buttons here and the ones at the very bottom of the page, which you'll see as we scroll towards the end of this article, it had some issues and they weren't working, specifically on LinkedIn and I think on Twitter. On Facebook it seemed to be working fine, but I just had to find some code that worked properly and do a lot of trial and error to adhere to the specific guidelines for each individual social media website. We also added the Reddit button there as well. This month we created our Reddit. Amory and I both use Reddit, so you know it makes sense for us to have a platform there and to share. They also have a pretty strong Forex community, so it'll be good for us to be on there. Then the research page was given some love, so we'll actually jump over to that now so you can have a look at what I mean. Previously it was very, very poor, the design, and we didn't have any real information for each of these, so I made it a bit better in terms of the user interaction, and you know, if you are truly interested, because only the really seriously interested people in the algorithm and in that side of things will come to this page and actually spend time on it. So I wanted to make it easy for them to get a grasp as to what's going on in each of these papers, you know, of which he's just created a new one that'll be added as well, and then the thesis as well. So put that inline, and then you can download it if inline doesn't work, because I know some browsers do not support inline PDF. But on top of that, we have all of the papers added, so you can just click on the read more and it'll download the PDF, or in browser it will open it, and you can then, you know, read to your heart's content if you choose to do so. Most people won't. Most people won't care about any of that stuff. All they care about is the results and that side of things. So we then, I then worked a little bit on the blog category page and made that a lot cleaner. We've got these two different buttons here to show you what I mean there. We'll jump over as well. And I don't know, it just makes it look a lot nicer than it was. I also added in the images to the post, the publish date, and just restructured things a little bit. So we've got these two tabs and it just crosses over there, so we now have all the videos and the articles for that particular category, so the updates category, available on the same page, and you're seamlessly able to switch between. So that's a UI thing. I'm pretty happy with that. One thing I don't like is that these don't align, so it's not a full carousel. I believe that a tile, not a full tiled system. So I can either make them all the same height, or I can figure out how to do that. I'm sure I can figure it out. So maybe I'll work on that this month. I don't know. It's a very low priority and it's just bugging me. So we'll see. On to the important stuff that's not just me freaking out over design and my OCD. The signals page. So we're currently displaying the signals based on the most activated agent. And what that means, as I've said here, is that out of all of the agents that we have for that individual pairing, that's that agent's rules were activated the most. So think of an agent as a trader, and each trader has a trading plan. That trading plan is represented in our agents as the rules, right? What rules does it use to execute a trade? So for instance, as I had said there, if the RSI is above 80, this is a good time to sell. So if the RSI is above 80, it will be looking to sell. If it has a bunch of other rules that are also met when it tests the market and it gets back the market data, then that will be a reasonably highly activated agent because it's met a bunch of these different rules that it has assigned to it. Then it uses fuzzy logic to determine to what degree is that rule met. So for instance, if it's at 87, it would be met to a higher degree than just 80, right? Because it's further above 80 than just at 80. So this rule here might have some slightly different wording and then say, even with that wording it would work. So if it's above 80, it's a good time to sell, and then you could, measure how much further above 80 it goes, and then it increases slightly in its thinking that it's a better time to sell. So in the future, we could possibly, as I said here, we could possibly also, and we're going to test this, use the top X percentage. So it could be top 5%, top 10% of agents in that pool that are executed the most, right? The top 5% of activated, not executed, of activated agents, and use them together as an average for the take profit and the stop loss, or use them to determine direction, then just take the top agent that agrees with that direction and use that for the take profit and stop loss. So there's a whole bunch of stuff we can look into. The predicted move was replaced with take profits and stop losses. That'll become evident further down in the article, because once we talk about the algorithm developments that we made during the month of August, it will become clear. Also, the action column's now just singular buy and sell. That's easier for people to follow along with, and we may bring back the previous system, which is using like strong sales, very strong sales, etc. Probably not with the same identifiers, not exactly the same words, but once we work on the rules a little bit more, it is a low priority for us at this stage though. And then the accuracy that we had, it was previously based on directional accuracy. So how often does it say it's going to go up, and after the duration of the prediction, is it correct? So let's say it was a 1 hour prediction, it predicts it's going to go up. After 1 hour, has it moved up from the entry price? If it has, that's a correct prediction, and that is 1 in the accuracy column, right? Yeah. So if you have only one trade and it goes up, and it said it was going to go up, that's 100% accuracy. You get what I mean? Now we are using the actual trades, which is much, much better in my mind. It's much more less deceptive. We weren't intentionally trying to be deceptive, but that's just the way it was set up. But now we're actually using the winners and the losers of that agent. So how many times is it won, how many times is it lost, and that is directly related to the take profit and stop loss. Now, one thing that we need to address is that I believe it is now using the testing data set information or training data set information, whereas it should be using testing data set information. However, when we're doing the testing, it won't have enough data for it to be reliable. Because if you've only taken 5 trades and you won all 5, that's probably luck, right? You're definitely going to lose at some stage. So we need a larger number of trades to draw from to get the actual accurate representation for accuracy. So that's something we're going to have to work on. I'm not sure how we will do that. Possibly we actually use live trades and we assign a unique identifier to the agent. We just then record the trades over time, and over time it gets more and more precise with its accuracy. We've got the push notifications. I won't touch on them. They're kind of working. There might be some issues on different browsers, but we'll keep you posted and keep working on it. On the analysis page, we're not using Maze and Mape anymore. It's super complicated stuff, but all you need to know is they're obsolete because we're not using that type of algorithm anymore. We've switched to a new one. There's an issue here we're having with the analysis page, in that it's going to be extremely slow in its current format once we get into the tens of thousands of stored data, like stored trades. So we need to work on that, and there's some stuff that can be done fairly easily. It's just not super important right now. That will mean the page loads a lot faster. At the moment it loads quite slow, and it still keeps all the same functionality, but just when you're searching in the search box and doing other stuff like exporting, when we use that, when we add that functionality, will become a little bit slower. Then jumping on to the algorithm development, this is where it gets interesting in my eyes. This is the stuff I love to talk about, and we'll do some whiteboard drawings here. But to start with, the way I set this article up is, last month we talked about some of the major issues, some of the major concerns we had about the algorithm in its current state and what we were trying to address. And we've got the first three here. Was the poor dynamic ability of the signals. They tended to always trade with the herd regardless of if there was a better option. So we've solved that completely, and part of the reason we solved that is by switching to the most activated of the agents. And there's some other things below that will identify what else we did. Not factoring in the take profits and stop losses. Without these, it makes tracking the profitability a manual nightmare, and we're susceptible to human error. So we've solved that as well. Then finally, using 1 hour and 24 hour prediction windows, which is solved. We're not doing that, and not taking into consideration what happens within those windows or after, and in some cases before. So we've partially solved the what happens during the trade and before and after, but there's things that we're going to do in the coming months that will fully solve that issue and make a huge difference. So in August we released the new and improved algorithm that now uses multi-objective models. So a multi-objective model can have as many objectives as we want. It's not just two. We could do as many as we want. At the moment, we are only looking for the take profit and the stop loss as the main outputs for this algorithm. We do have what's called fitness functions, which is what the algorithm is using to determine whether an agent is good, right? So it's looking at certain characteristics and saying how many wins has this agent had, how many losses have they had. And it's trying to minimize the amount of losers and maximize the amount of winners. It's also trying to maximize the profit of that agent, right? To the profit per trade, or the average income per trade. So there's a bunch of other things we could tweak and do there. We could focus on the average duration of a trade in relation to the income. We could focus on changing the average income to average percent return, which I think would be a good move, and things like that. There's a lot of room for improvement there, but even with this straight switch, this is so much better. It's so much better because it now allows us to have take profits and stop losses. And one of the reasons I think that is way better is because it's a more mechanical system, right? One of the things that stops people from becoming a successful trader is they're not mechanical enough and emotionless with their trading. They're constantly thinking, oh, what should I do? When should I take this trade? I'm not sure. Where should I enter? Where should I put my take profit, stop loss? It's very clear with this system where your take profit and stop losses should be. With optimization, these numbers will slightly change, but even at this current setting, the results are really quite outstanding. And towards the end of this video, I'll actually cover off some of the results quickly, because I'll do that in depth in the 17th beta update that I'll record this coming week. So those are some of the reasons I really love the multi-objective system. The mechanical nature, also storing the wins and losses. It's much more reliable, and really what we want to do is we want to simulate trading in the best possible manner, and what successful traders do every single day, and what information they're recording, use that to hopefully then improve through optimization. So by doing this, we got rid of the prediction windows, as I said, and the objectives, as I said, is to minimize the stop loss and maximize the take profit. The fourth point from last week's article was the cyclical testing at near random times. For example, the algorithm cycles through all the pairings and returns a signal at that time rather than looking for an optimal entry point. The entire cycle takes around 1 hour. So we've actually now upgraded the algorithm to use triangular membership functions instead of Gaussian membership functions, which is a huge leap forward. In fact, I'm going to skip over all that stuff, but what it means is triangles, baby. But in total, it's around about 13 times faster. So it's about a 1400% increase in the speed of the system, and it allows us to test and iterate much quicker. So previously, when we would only test one market roughly every 60 minutes, we're now able to test that same market roughly every 10 minutes or so, which means that our entry points are a lot more consistent. And because now we're using a buy, sell, hold system, when it doesn't meet certain criteria, it doesn't give back a signal. It only gives back a signal once it's more certain that this is what's going to happen, which is resulting in better signals overall, I think. Finally, we have the ability to plot all of the training data on charts, like the one shown below, which I realize now that I haven't actually added. So I'll add that in the post-production. But what it is it's just using all of the open, the close, and the high and the low to create candles on a chart. It's plotting that, and then it's plotting the trades within those, whether or not it hit the take profit, stop loss, using lines and stuff. I'll definitely, in next month's video, I'll definitely run through that, because we're going to add some different functionality that utilizes that capability, which will be really exciting. So talking about some bug fixes, the agents were suggesting trades with a 0 stop loss and take profit, which is obviously clearly an issue. We got rid of that, and the time zones on our server were off by 1 hour, so we remedied that as well. One of the things, this is super interesting. So using pattern recognition. Now, I'm not going to read from there. What I'm going to do is jump here. But at the moment, we have 3 data sets. So we have the creation data set, the training data set, the testing data set. All 3 of them roughly use 200 hours. Now, the testing data set actually, so the first 2 use 200. The testing data set uses only what's required to create the first trade, right, to test a trade. And that's basically simulating real world situation, whereas the other 2 are using known data to create the best possible situation. So let's say we've got I'm not going to use very good charting techniques here, but let's say we've got that. So this is very poor, but this is just for example. So let's say that's where our testing data set is. This is our training data set, and this is in reality. So can I undo that? And this might be our testing, and then this is after it goes live, and this is the live situation. So the way it does it at the moment is it just looks for the previous I think it's like 500 hours or something. So these are 200 each. These are 200 hours. And this depends. So that just depends on how much input data you need. So it's between 400 and 500 hours generally, in that range, probably below 500. But it takes that information, and this is just the previous data, right? The previous info. And I'm just going to quickly check here to see if my McDonald's is on the way, because I've got some McDonald's coming. But it's not progressing. What's going on here? I don't know. So we have, as I said, this 400 hours here, and these align pretty directly, right? So it stops one and starts the other. But the problem at the moment is it's just taking the previous data. So it's not really making a decision about what data to pick. It's just looking back X amount of hours, and it's just capturing that data, and then it's creating agents based on this. So it's creating perfect agents for the patterns within this data set. Then what it's doing on this data set is it's optimizing those agents, right? It's doing it individually, so it lets an agent individually trade through this whole duration, and then it puts them into an agent pool and they trade together to try and maximize the profits over that duration. And some of the agents won't trade at all, which means they're being dominated by another agent 100% of the time, right? They never have the dominant activation. So if it's not, if their agent is dominated completely, it removes their agent from the agent pool, right? It deletes it. It's like genetics, recessive and dominant genes. If it is dominant in one of the objectives, then it is added to what's called the Pareto frontier. And basically what that is it's like a curve of optimal agents. Some of the agents are better in certain situations, some of them are better in others. Or some of them are better at some objectives rather, and some of them are better at the other, right? And it's like on a chart, you've got one objective for the x-axis and one the y-axis, one for the x-axis, and you've got these agents plotted in between, and thus they're in varying degrees of good at each objectives. Probably more than you guys needed to know, but hey, so what the problem is here is we could have a bullish market here where the agents are created. We could have a bearish market where they're optimized. So you're optimizing agents that were created for the exact opposite situation. Then you could have a testing data set, which is a sideways market. And in reality, it could be a sideways market as well. So, or it could be like a halfway of a sideways market and then going into like a bullish market, right? So the issue being, it's not consistent. So what we need to do is we need to be able to look back for the first and the second of these markets. So we want to find 2 bullish markets, we want to find 2 bearish markets and 2 sideways markets. We want to use one market for one of each of these markets for the creation data set, which is where we create our agents, one of each of them for training them, and then we just want to test basically on the live situation, and then have them actually do whatever happens there. So in essence, it's just going to make it a much more customized and tailored system for the different markets. And we may use more than just these 3 markets, right? There's different types of markets in between there and different degrees of bullish and bearish. So huge potential, huge potential. Very excited for that. Armory thinks it's going to be absolutely game changing. And the system at the moment is performing pretty well as is. So it's really exciting to hear that coming from him. This is something we were trying to work on last month, never got around to it, optimizing a server. I am putting together a document, I won't talk about that, and in the process of attempting to escape the Philippines, which is happening in the next couple of days. So, well, hopefully. So, that'll be good. Okay, that's all of the stuff for the article. This is the buttons that I talked about earlier. The final points that I want to talk about, because I need to address my dinner and whether or not that's coming or not, is that we have, at the moment, we're working on checking or automating the win-loss checking. Because we can take all that information, we can then plot it on charts. We can determine whether or not that trade was a winner or a loser live, and then we can display all those results rather than me having to do what I do at the moment, which is manually going through, and let me jump over here and show you, manually going through and tallying every single month. And I did 1,500 trades this week rather. Right, going through every single week and manually tallying them. This is from the first 2 days when we started. Ignore that, that's not accurate information. But I did the totals and all the information. I went through and did each individual pairing. You can see the winners on the left and the losers on the right. The losers are always going to be more because it's a system using higher risk rewards. These are the actual risks and rewards and pip value for each winner. Going down, and then what I did is I averaged the risk reward. So for this pairing GBP USD, it's 3.07. So for every 1 you're risking, on average you're returning 3 times that. Then what I did to make it as accurate as possible is I took the worst possible way of representing the results and the data through the current methods anyway. And the way I did that was I had, this is a winner. Then I had at minus 1%, right? So minus whatever we had here, get rid of 1% straight away. So that's one of the losses. And then what I did is I added another loss. So for every step forward, basically it's 2 steps backwards. And that seemed to have the worst possible outcome across all of the pairings. So I used that specifically because I always like to just smear a little bit of shit on my optimism and try make it the worst possible outcome as possible. Now there's things we'll add later in here and make it actually more realistic when we do this behind the scenes. Like what sequence were these actually taken in, and how much equity would we have had available for the trade when it was taken, if we are going off based off a $100 account or a $1,000 account, whatever. So there is ways to improve these numbers slightly, but even with what we had, the results were pretty outstanding, really. In fact, on average, the return was 172% positive for the week. We had a couple of losers that were down about 30%, but we did have a couple of winners that were positive 500 to 600%, which is just outstanding. Like, it's amazing. And this would have never happened, but what I did was I tallied all of the winners and losers, and then using compound interest, positive and negative, figured out after the total duration of 1,000 trades, 1,500 trades. So you can see this is the 500 or so winners, and you just double that number because I've got the loser here, and then I've got one loser for each of these. So it's roughly about 1,420 trades all up. So the finished outcome, astronomical, right? You're looking at like turning a $1,000 account into $100,000, and bear in mind that's 1,400 trades. Most people probably wouldn't even trade that in a single year, and that's the power of compounding. But we will obviously work on making those numbers more realistic. I've probably done something wrong, so don't take my word for those results. Once we get a better way of measuring them, hopefully it'll become a little bit clearer. Already talked about data sets. The final two things I want to talk about, the final thing I want to talk about is the addition of what we're going to call a metrics page, which will do what I was just saying. It will make things a bit more transparent, all of the numbers. It will show like the maximum lose streak, the maximum drawdown, the average return, all these different metrics that we can use and we can plot on charts and stuff to give people more clarity that we are in fact getting the results we say we are, right? It's all good and well to just say we've got X% of winners, or we've won this many times, this is the amount of profit we've had, but how did we come to those numbers? I think that's very important when it comes to just making people confident in a system, right? If they can see all the workings behind it. That's us for this week, this month, sorry. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel so you're notified when we do next month's update video. As I said, if you'd prefer to read through the article, anything I glossed over, you can go over to the website and do that, and give the video a thumbs up so it goes into, it gets out into as many people's feeds as possible, and we can generate as much interest in the system as we can, because the more interest we have, the more customers we have, the better we're able to make it, and it benefits everyone in the process. All right, we'll see you in next month's update.